Hey, Happy New Year and welcome to another sneaker review. This is my first video of 2015 and I wanted to review my 2014 25th Anniversary Reebok Pumps in two original colorways. We have the black, gray, orange, and white pumps, which is model J09092, as well as the white, royal, sheer, and orange ones, which is model J09095 in case you want to look them up. And if you've seen my other videos, you know I love Reebok pumps. And 2014 saw a lot of cool Reebok pump collaborations, but up until a few months ago I had yet to see any original colorways. I figured they'd release a few, seeing that it's the 25th anniversary, but I had not heard of an official release date. And then one night at work, I decided to go back onto Reebok.com, and lo and behold, there they were, both of these colorways. A few sizes had already disappeared, and I decided then and there that I had to buy them both. And luckily I had a 50% discount code, and I was able to get them each for $102, which is a steal in my opinion. And I'm surprised that they actually let me use the discount code for these shoes. But I'm so happy to have them. And I even decided to get a second pair of the white and blue ones more recently from endclothing.com. That's endclothing.com. And Reebok has been releasing original colorways for the original pump every 5 years, starting with 2004's 15-year anniversary. And I have a pair of original 1988 pumps in white, black, and orange, as well as white and blue pairs of the 2009 and 2014 releases, and 2004 as well, and I'll get to those later. Since the pump is celebrating its 25th anniversary, I thought I'd take a little time to talk about the history of the shoe. Throughout the 80s, a man by the name of Paul Fireman was heading Reebok. He had introduced the small UK company to the US market, where they were pretty much a hit. He oversaw the release of shoes like the Reebok Freestyle in 1982, my year, which revolutionized women's sneakers during the aerobics craze of that era, the early and mid-80s. In 1985, a guy by the name of Paul Litchfield joined Reebok, where he helped develop ERS, which is the energy return system, and that appeared in a lot of the midsoles of many late 80s Reebok models, the original pump included, as well as these. And it was later phased out in the early 90s by Hexalite. But by the late 80s, Reebok was looking to change the sneaker game once again, and this time with a custom-fit basketball shoe. And Fireman said he wanted the Reebok Pump to be the freestyle of the 90s. And they played around with different ideas, from straps to different foams, but they ultimately settled on an air bladder system that the wearer could inflate and deflate. And it was by no means an original idea. The team was inspired in part by a ski boot with a pump mechanism. But the pump was totally new to the world of sneakers. And to help develop the pump, Litchfield and his team sought the help of Boston design company Design Continuum in 1988. And the major hurdle was the actual pump mechanism. It had to be strong enough to withstand tough wear and tear on and off the court. It had to be able to hold its air and not pop or deflate. And it had to be comfortable. It had to be practical. And to solve this problem, the team worked with a medical device company that produced blood and IV bags. And the pump wasn't always the shoe's name. Reebok toyed around with words like air and custom for the name, but ultimately pump won out. Since there was a company that already had a shaving product called the Pump, Reebok settled on the Pump by Reebok for legal reasons. In February of 1989, Reebok brought two prototypes, the Pump Shot and the Pro Pump, to the Atlanta Super Show, where they received positive reviews. And funny enough, Nike was also at the show with its own pump, the Nike Air Pressure. And Litchfield said of the Pressure, they, Nike, showed it under glass where you couldn't touch it, and with the bright lights it looked like a rock star. And this worried him and Reebok, as their shoe wasn't even completed yet. It looked very little like the pump we know today. And to make matters worse, their boss, Fireman, said the pump would be ready for the holidays, and that was a seemingly impossible task for the small team at Reebok. Fortunately, senior designer Paul Brown, the man who had worked on the Reebok Freestyle, was able to design the pump within days of the Super Show, and he added that signature orange rubber basketball pump to the tongue, and the rest is history. And it looked pretty much as it does now here in front of you. The newer models have seen a few changes, but more or less they've stayed pretty true to the original 1989 version. And luckily for Reebok, the pump was ready for the holidays and released on November 24th, 1989, to the tune of $170, which is around $330 today. And that's the main reason why my parents didn't buy me a pair. And like many of you out there, I basically wore whatever my mom bought for me, and that was that. Regardless, the Reebok pump was a hit, and I'm so happy they released the 25th anniversary pump on November 28th, 2014. And don't get me wrong, I like the collaborations, I love the collaborations, but there's nothing like an original. So take a look at the 1989 shoe. It's big and bulky, but most basketball shoes were back then. And this pair is no longer wearable due to cracks in the midsole. The majority of the tongue was mesh back then, not leather, as you can see. The toe box was narrow, kind of shaped like an arrow, and the laces were narrow too. The pumps actually still work, and I find that the majority of vintage pumps work better than their retro counterparts. I'm not sure why. The leather here is very thick, and for comparison I put each model's leather next to a quarter and a nickel, so check out those photos. The 2004 version, like the ones that followed, featured an all-leather tongue and added a lace loop towards the top. And the toe box was expanded, and the inner lining material was changed. The laces are wider, and the tumbled leather panels are very soft. I took the back of a paintbrush and pressed it into the leather to see how soft it was. You can kind of get an idea if you check out the pictures. The pump mechanism kind of gets stuck for me, but the chambers do hold air. And I've heard other 2004 shoe owners have had issues with their pumps. As for the thickness of the leather, it's somewhat thin compared to the original. The 2009 model kept the soft tumbled leather and wider laces, but went for a more narrow toe box, though not as narrow as the originals. The pump works for me, but they're not great. There's a very quiet hiss when you hit the release valve, and the release valve button itself isn't as big as on the originals and the 2004s, and the plastic font isn't as sharp. This is the shoe I'm probably most familiar with. I love them. As for the 2014s, I saw a few minor glue stains and a white mark on the black leather. Some of the perforations on the toe box were not completely punched through, and the Reebok and basketball stitching on the tongue are not as sharp as on the 2004s and the 2009s. However, the stitching on the originals, the 1989s, is probably the worst. It's not sharp at all. The tumbled leather on the 2014s is also not as soft. Maybe with age it'll soften up, I don't know. The pumps on the black pair work, but I'm having some trouble with the white ones. We'll see. I will say that the 2014 models have the thickest leather after the originals. You should check out that photo. So that's a basic comparison of the 4 models. As for size, I always say go up half a size for Reebok pumps. I believe you can get away with your normal size, but since these have a lot of padding, and with the addition of an inflated tongue, plus not having much ventilation, you'd be fine going up half a size. As for quality, I have no big issues. I'm most familiar with the 2009s, as I said, and I've worn them out at night, to go grocery shopping, to and from work, on vacation, etc., and they've been very easy to clean and care for. I've had no issues with chipping paint, or staining, or crazy creasing. A little bit of creasing, but nothing big. One thing I will say is that they all tend to squeak a little bit when you walk, but for me that's just part of Reebok pumps. So if you're looking to get a pair right now in early 2015, they can still be found online at stores like Sneakers and Stuff and End Clothing. eBay is another option, but resellers will charge double. If you're looking to save money, try searching for coupon and discount codes. So that's it for this first video of the new year. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and go out and get a pair of pumps too. And have a great day.
Touch